Welcome to the Copilot Connection.
We're here to share with you all the news, insights, and capabilities of the Microsoft Copilot ecosystem from across the entire Microsoft stack. I'm Zoe Wilson, and I'm an executive at Avanade in our modern work business, an MVP for M365, a regional director, and a Viva Explorer.
And I'm Kevin McDonnell. I'm an MVP, also Viva Explorer, and the Copilot Strategy and Modern Workplace AI leader at Avanade. And I still can't say that seriously. We'll be releasing episodes as podcasts and on YouTube with insights from experts from the community and Microsoft on what the different areas of Copilot are, the impact they can make to you and your organization, what you need to do to prepare for them now, and even how you can extend them.
Did you notice, Kevin? I don't actually use my job title anymore. There's a reason I just
that did throw me slightly.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's just easier. I mean, I have to say one thing we do like here at Avanade is really long job titles.
I like mine, but maybe one day, maybe I'll take that out as well.
Yeah, I'll just find a snappy way of saying it.
Yes.
So it's been a while since our last episode.
It has. We've been kind of busy, which we'll come up to in a minute. But what have you been up to since, what was it, about a month ago, I think, our last episode?
Well, yeah, I mean, the last session that the two of us did together was when we actually kicked off the month of Copilot, wasn't it? When we did the live connecting the Copilot session. So for me, since then, my most of my time has been spent working, or sunning myself on a beach in Cyprus, which was actually a really nice way to spend part of June.
Wasn't jealous at all of that. Not jealous at all.
How about you, Kevin? What have you been up to?
Well, yeah, a lot of working, a lot of going up and down the UK for open days for my son, who's who's kind of planning ahead for university. So seeing various parts of the country, which was nice. I so love the M25 on a Friday night. It's a lovely place to be stuck in traffic. But I did get a little bit of fun. We had Commsverse, which is one of my favorite conferences. I've been to all of the ones that they've had. It's over at Mercedes-Benz World in the UK. So you're kind of surrounded by lots of lovely modern Mercedes, lots of old classic ones. They got the test track there and a whole load of tech content. And it was the first chance I got to show one of my new sessions, which is around building an AI strategy with Copilot. And it's always slightly nerve-wracking if you're doing a new session that you kind of feel you're going into a slightly different area, not just demoing tech. It's like, is this going to work? Are going to people like it? And it went down really, really well. I think it's the one I've had the most questions afterwards and most people who came up and wanted to ask me more about it. So that was a lovely little buzz that came from that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame to miss Commsverse, but I always have this conflict with my other half wanting to go on holiday at the end of June before all the schools break up for the summer, and we have to deal with loads of people taking their kids on holiday. And the date that Commsverse always falls on. So I was really, really sad to miss it, although not so sad considering where I was. But it is a really great event. And actually, I'm really pleased that your session went well as well. I know you were messaging me saying that you'd had really great feedback. So that's fantastic.
It was good. And we had some other messages that I think were around the same time as Commsverse. And I haven't mentioned I had to nip back in between Commsverse to go and run a water fight with the Cubs, which again meant me stuck in traffic on the M25. And I'm a big fan of Apple CarPlay and WhatsApp to keep me entertained and focused. But we were having a lovely time waiting for the what's the word? The release of some exciting news.
Yeah, the lifting of the embargo, shall we say. I know that we always say that this is, it's not an Avanade podcast, it's a community podcast. And while that is 100% true, I am super proud of the fact that Avanade and Accenture actually won the very first Copilot Partner of the Year award. I think it's I mean, for me personally, this was something I've been targeting for months, actually. As soon as I realized there was going to be a Copilot Partner of the Year award, I said that we had to get that. But it's just testament to the hard work that everybody's put in. Yeah, for me, it was a real sense of achievement.
And this is going to be like the community quizzes at conferences, same time next year, fighting for it again, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
No,
Yeah.
it was fantastic to be involved with and see how many people have been working together. So we won't rant on about it because I'm sure many of you are fed up seeing part of the year posts coming out on social media, but was very exciting with that as well. Oh, and I forgot the other thing I was involved with. We set up a new user group with some others called Experts Live UK, using the Experts Live branding, working with the kind of team based out of Holland there to kind of take that brand into the UK. And we had our first user group at the Advania headquarters, and sponsored by them and Performanta. We had two really interesting sessions. In fact, we're trying to keep with the user groups a theme, and this theme was AI, so it fits nicely with the Copilot connection. We had Amy Boyd from Microsoft talking about some of the responsible AI tools, which were really it's been one of those things that I kind of knew a little about, but hadn't really been able to pick below the surface. So being able to see those demo was really interesting. And my question immediately was, can we do this with Copilot? Can we do this with Copilot Studio on there? To which the answer was, maybe two, maybe. Yeah, that was really interesting. And then Steve Goodman gave a really interesting talk about agents, which I know we've talked about quite a bit on the show in between there. But he took the idea, because it was the same night as the England-Denmark match, so he decided to build a set of agents that were football players, got Copilot to help him make a kind of rudimentary UI for it that was a bit like Sensi Soccer, and got them to play out there. And I think it amazed and terrified people in equal measure, but really interesting to kind of get that notion. He was using AutoGen and the AutoGen Studio, so it was nice to kind of see the almost low-code way that you could do that as well. But really interesting, and looking forward to the next one in September, hopefully.
Yeah, that sounds good. What day will the next one be, Kevin?
I knew you were going to ask that. We haven't got it confirmed yet. We are hoping to have a subject and get that out soon. I think we've got a meeting soon on that one, so I'm gonna do that slightly NDA around that.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is that the user group also ended up being when I was on holiday, didn't it? Otherwise, I would have been there to support. And I am actually away again in September, so I've got my fingers crossed that I won't actually be on holiday when you're doing the next one.
Yeah, I think we've been public about this. No, this might be the first announcement of this, and I'll get in trouble from the others. But we're hoping to make security the theme. So we're trying to get themes that cut across the Microsoft space. So we'll be looking probably a bit of modern work security, the general things you can do, looking at the security you can bring with Azure. So not focusing on one single thing, but trying to cut across different areas, and getting a couple of great speakers in for that.
Brilliant. Sounds good.
But we had a few other things going on while you were away, and others. It feels like we haven't been quiet, even though we have been on the podcast, because we've had the month of Copilot out there.
Yeah, so the very first month of Copilot, where we had Copilot related sessions being broadcast live on our YouTube channel, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, every single day throughout the entire month of June. And when we first talked about this, what we wanted to do was to try to get more up-to-date, more relevant content from people who've actually been getting hands-on with all of the different Copilots to help all of you get up to speed and in your learning journey, because things are moving so quickly and there just isn't enough content out there yet. So we weren't sure how popular it would be. We weren't sure how much content we would actually get. But, we had loads of really great videos submitted, which were uploaded on our channel as we went through the month of June.
Yeah, which brings me nicely onto, sorry for those listening on the podcast, but if you go to copilotconnection.com, you can see a link to our channel, or it's just youtube.com/@thecopilotconnection on there, and you'll see we've got the kind of latest videos. It says for you, so I'm kind of intrigued whether AI is at work there to say which ones come up. But we have underneath that Month of Copilot, and we've tried to have the full Copilot full session, which I've just noticed I haven't updated because there's only 2 videos in there. Whoops! But we've broken it down into the different topics as well. So if there's a particular topic, we had 5 Viva ones, which was fascinating. Plenty on adoption and change that you can go and look at those. Or if you just go into the live tab, you can see all the videos by the latest that go in there. And we kicked it all off. You kind of touched on this earlier on now connecting the Copilot session, which I'm really hoping we can do at some more conferences, because I enjoyed that and had some great feedback of people are finding that very useful on how to get started with the different ones. But then we've had all sorts of other ones. We're going to touch on, what's it, 4 today that's particularly. I'm going to be so careful on this. Not ones that were the better than the others, but I think that kind of maybe talked about something a bit different to things that we've spoken about previously, more than anything else on there. Because I love Fabio. He talked about the magic formula of prompting. So kind of talking about prompting that was interesting. I will be honest, I've had quite a busy month as well, and haven't had a chance to see these, but one on my list is that steering 365 Copilot to your company APIs with a custom plugin. We had a few extensibility ones on there. Was there any that you wanted to call out particularly, Zoe?
Well, I think if we just get into the ones that we're planning to focus on, and then, like you say, there's tons of stuff on here. I've not had a chance to watch all of these. I think as we were processing and preparing the videos for upload, we definitely shared the load across the 2 of us and across volunteers as well. So a big thank you to Gary Rafe, particularly, who helped you, Kevin, whilst I was out in Cyprus, and then to Simon Owen and Paul Bullock as well, who were both willing volunteers. So yeah, definitely a big thank you. But there's so much good content, and like you say, it covers such a broad range as well. Everything from Copilot in Azure. We've got people like Rishi with the Power BI Fabric and role-based Copilots. Lots of adoption ones. People bring in lots of different perspectives and learnings.
Yeah, and there was one Gonzai Azas who talked about his journey. I hope I forgot his name pronounced nicely there, but his journey with Copilot, which has been around that early access preview engagement and the real experience. So it's kind of tricky with some of these, because you're like, oh, it's adoption and change again. Oh, it's people talking about their experience. But genuinely with these, people come at it from a different angle from there. So it's well worth giving those a watch.
Yeah,
But
just on the adoption and change, actually, there was one that Jack Fisher and Pete Basie did, where they were coming at it from a slightly different angle, because instead of talking about how to drive change and adoption specific to Copilot, what they actually cover in their session is how to use Copilot to help drive change and adoption programs. So all of the different ways that you can use Copilot if you're actually delivering a change program, either inside your organization or for clients, which I thought was a slightly different spin on that adoption topic.
Yeah, no, that's really nice. And as you say, it's different ways of looking at it. And I think the other one, the one we're going to drill into a bit here, was our friend and colleague Molly Rupert Sullivan. On there, again, talking a little bit about adoption, but talking about that story of adoption. So starting from that experimentation and how you build it towards habits. And I know Atomic Habits is one of my favorite books within there. And I think, to me, that's one of the key things about adoption with Copilot. It's not just getting it out there, understanding what it does. It's how do you make it natural that you're doing that, regularly? How does it become a natural part of what you do, in the same way as not just saying hello to people in Teams should be a natural thing you do? I just had to drop that in there. But yeah, how do you get the value by seeing that being the habits of what you do on there as well?
Yeah, I mean, the thing, so Molly actually gave us 2 sessions, didn't she? And the thing I really liked about Molly's sessions was you can tell from listening to her speak that she's talking from a real position of knowledge and experience. And actually, so Molly works at Accenture, and she's been working alongside us at Avanade on lots of big enterprise deployments, as well as working on the Accenture deployment of Copilot. And I've seen lots of sessions from people, you know, where they've not really got that actual hands-on real-world experience of what it takes to succeed. So I think that, you know, that actual lived experience comes across really strongly in Molly's sessions, and I definitely recommend people go and watch them. And I think you're right. I mean, I've talked I've talked extensively on the podcast before, and when I've delivered other sessions at events and stuff about this need to build the Copilot muscle, and it's so important to build habits. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like it's part of your workflow, and it's something, you know, you forget to do. It's not that muscle memory. So, you know, I think this was a really good session talking about how you build those Copilot foundations, how you get people started with, you know, with that adoption, and a lot of that's kind of typical for a standard adoption program, you know, where you've got peer-to-peer learning and training sessions and things like that. But then talking about how you actually go beyond that to get more persona or functional value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll be honest, because we've seen so many of these, I have cheated slightly. I'm lucky enough to have streaming Copilots where we've uploaded all these and got it to summarize and pick up some of the topics to remind ourselves. So if this sounds very Copilot-y language, it's where I've picked up on there. But I think Molly talked about the kind of levels of maturity, you know, that foundation, persona and functional, as well as that hyper personal value, which I think really fits in with that kind of habit forming for individuals on there as well. And I really like that kind of hyper personal, getting it for something that means something to you, not just to generically what you can do on there as well. I'm getting very distracted because we had a quick chat with Lorian Strant just before this to see if maybe he could come and join us. And he's now, yes, I'm available. No, it's too late, Lorian. Stop distracting me. Right, I'm going to hide that window.
That Lorian
always
causing trouble.
It's because he's sat there just staring at a wall, waiting for the MVP renewals. We know the truth.
Yeah, F5,
doing,
F5, F5.
Right, focus, Kevin, on there. Yeah, so I liked that Molly covered that as well as the kind of more traditional need for that training and understanding on there as well. But it hasn't come out in the summary, but I know that Molly did also talk about that experimentation. It's playing around with it and not necessarily saying this is what Copilot can do for you. It's like, here's a few things Copilot can do. Go and play around and see what you can do with it. And I really like that aspect. I think that's something that we found with clients as well, that has helped them. It's helped them explore different areas, and some of that will work, some of that won't work, but trying to play around with that has really, sorry, not play, experiment around with those different things has really helped on there as well. And I think this kind of fits back to, I was mentioning Fabio's session on prompting, thinking about how you prompt and using some of the canned prompts, but then experimenting with taking it a little bit further and doing different things as well. I don't know if we talked about this show, because you sent me a really interesting idea for a prompt about which superhero would you be based on your team's chats, I think, wasn't it? Which was interesting.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Do you want to introduce and just talk about the next session, and I'm going to find that prompt. We can talk about it.
Yeah, we'll come back to that because I've been treated to know if others find it works. So now, funnily enough, this feels slightly ironic that I've been kind of jumping around a little bit and losing focus here, because the next session we'll talk about, which was by Denny de Klerk, which is about co-piloting my autism in tech. And I know, Zoe, you've talked a lot in the past about kind of leveling the playing field and how it can help with neurodiversity. And Denny really dug into that, of looking at the different areas and the different co-pilots as well. I think especially with GitHub Copilot, using that to kind of stay on focus for his writing code, writing JavaScript and Blazor as he did within there. Talking about some of his traits. So he covered things like cognitive workload and his context blindness, which I think is a lovely phrase within there, about how how can you understand the context of all this thing? If you're especially jumping around between different subjects, trying to get the context aware of that and using Copilot to help within there. He also talks about using it to help with his blog posts and social media posts to get the grammar on there and getting nice slides with Microsoft Designer on that. And then talked about unit testing. So I know with my own occasional neurodiversity, trying to make sure you're testing everything and keeping focused on that can become hard, and remembering what it is you're looking to cover. So Denny talked again around how GitHub Copilot can help that. And then the kind of more generic things that he came through about generating images with Bing Copilots and getting things like medical information and travel tips. So whether it's something that you think could be interesting for your own neurodiversity or how you can work with others, well worth having a look at Denny's session around that one.
Yeah, I always really like Denny's sessions because I feel like he brings that really interesting combination of his deep technical expertise, but also his real world lived experience with autism as well, and that willingness to talk about it.
Yeah, that I think comes through. So yeah, really enjoyed that session. I can see you've just sent me a message. Coming back and bringing focus, making sure we don't forget things. Do you want to talk about that superhero?
Yeah,
Prompt?
so the prompts, and we'll put this prompt in the show notes as well. So the prompt that we used was look at the emails and Teams meetings that I've sent in the last 6 months. Use these messages to distill a personal brand voice document that I can use to inform Copilot of my personal voice and style. Based on the above analysis, what superhero represents my style of work best? What would my superpowers be? Can you format that as a dossier for superheroes, listing my real name and most similar existing superhero, and include the rest of the information formatted and edited in dossier style? And then on Teams, Kevin, I actually sent you your output for this because I couldn't find my own. So, and actually, we both got the same superhero, didn't we, when we did this?
Yeah, I really want to try this again because I think you sent me mine and then I ran the prompt, and I'm convinced it was influenced by that because
By
it
the
came out for
fact I'd
both of
already put
us.
mine in, yeah.
Yeah, it came out as both of us as being Tony Stark, and it was all about strategic vision and technological savvy and leadership within there. So
Mm.
I'm certainly going to try it again. I'd love to know if other people. I'm hoping not everyone comes up with Tony Stark, because I'm sure some of you aren't strategic. Some of you, fly by the seat of your pants on there. But
Yeah, I
I
mean,
thought it was
a
very
few,
interesting.
yeah, I mean, a few of the colleagues did get different superheroes.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
nice.
I can think of at least three or four that I've tested this with who all got different superheroes. But when you think about the topics that we're working with, we are working with quite similar topics, even if the target area or how we're working with it is a little bit different.
So can we come back for the next episode with the Avengers and work out who's the different roles and stuff like that?
Yeah,
That could be good.
so we'll have like 5 Tony Starks.
Yeah. Well, there is. I don't know how much you get in the Marvel world, but I think the what's it, Armor Wars is due to be the next big thing. So there are lots of different Iron people coming. So maybe that could work.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right. So moving
Do you-
on.
I know you touched on this one earlier, but do you want to talk about Rishi's session again?
Yeah. So just covering a completely different aspect of that Copilot ecosystem, we had a really great session from Rishi Sapra, who talked about Power BI, Fabric, and role-based Copilots, how to get them to do what you expect. Now, whilst I might have a lot of general knowledge about Copilots, I'm not going to lie, Fabric and data platform is an area where my knowledge is a little bit lighter, shall we say. So I think the fact
High level,
yeah. So I think the fact that Rishi talks about kind of what Microsoft Fabric is, the fact that it's this unified platform for data analytics, and how it's bringing together all of these different data services, just really kind of helps to ground that in what it is. And then he talks about the different roles and skills that people play in the data ecosystem, the fact that we've got people who consume data, people who explore data, we've got data analysts, data engineers, data scientists, and he talked about the different ways that Fabric and Copilots aim to empower all of these different types of users.
No, it's really good, and I think he talks about the different sorts of copilots that are within that fabric as well. So things like the notebook copilot, the data flow copilot, as well as the Power BI copilot. I'm looking and hoping that he didn't call them that, and he talked about Copilot in Power BI and named it correctly, and it's just Copilot misrepresenting that. But I think it's kind of interesting. Again, we talk about the different Copilots and where they surface and the capabilities. And it's similar to you. Fabric is one of those areas I haven't seen as much around what the true capabilities are of it. There's a lot of assumptions within there, and looking forward to rewatching some of this, because I kind of skipped through it as I was processing it and had a look at a few of the elements. I'm really looking forward to coming back on this, because I think with the data ones, it's slightly early, but is going to be huge. So I think people are realizing some of the limitations that this can bring, but they're being addressed, they're being looked at, and I think will really add to it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as well, because when I talk to people about the different copilots and which one their favorite is and the level of maturity, I think there's a resounding view across, particularly people in that developer community, that GitHub Copilot is by far and away the favorite and the best out of all of the copilots. And there are two reasons for that. One is that it's actually in the flow of work. So Copilot is just there intuitively helping you as you do the thing that you need to do, rather than having to think about going off and using Copilot.
Rather than making that habit, it's just there as a habit.
Yeah, but it's also a lot more mature. It's a lot older than the other Copilots. So, what that says to me from a product lifecycle perspective is that all of these newer copilots in another year or two are just going to be hopefully at a similar level of maturity. And one of the things that I'm interested in when you look at things like Fabric and the copilots in that pure data space is the possibilities when we start to combine that with Copilot for M365, for example. And, the ability to be able to extend Copilot for M365 and leverage APIs and data sources and data that sits inside Fabric, and actually bring the power of those two things together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll be fantastic. And it brings that information to where people are, which I'm already hearing people asking for there. I mean, Tree, to know how it's going to handle having dealt with some users who don't really know what they want, for it to be able to understand that and translate it effectively. But it's probably going to be better because it'll have the context of what that person has said before as well. So yeah, really, really interesting part of it. Another session that was slightly different, and this one was very close to my heart, and I know many of you out there are consultants and probably working with trying to get people using Copilot for M365, and Sarah Fenner did a really good session about how to demo with that. I know that's something that you and I have spent plenty of time working out, because it's not just showing the functionality. For most people, the Copilot is in your live tenant, and therefore you have all this information which is highly permissioned that only you can see, unless you happen to be demoing Copilot and wanting to show all this exciting information, and then you have to be a little bit careful with it. So Sarah went into some of the strategies and techniques that means you can showcase some of that really exciting materials. Also thinking about how you can do it without offending the demo gods on there. I'd love to know Sarah's techniques specifically on how you can ensure that every time it works.
Rain dance.
Yeah, record beforehand. I think always have a backup recording for some of these. Or what I tend to do is run that prompt when I know it works, so I can always scroll back to it if it's not working live, and not always running that live one, because it does take a little bit of time occasionally. So I know Sarah went into some of the different ideas on that, which was really useful. But you also covered not just showing it itself, but how you can use Copilot to actually build out your demo content. I've
Yeah, I mean,
been
that
doing
was
this recently.
yeah, that was something we did because again, with this limitation of Copilot being in your production tenant, when we were demoing to clients, we had to provide guidance to our colleagues. So, and we actually only had a really small group of people who were trained to do this safely, because we couldn't have a situation where you present to one client and in the answer to a prompt, it brings back data for another client. So I actually used Copilot in Word to generate a fake meeting script. And then we all recorded this fake meeting script. And then that gave us a meeting that we could go back and query when we were in a meeting with clients as well. So I think, definitely watch Sarah's session. There's some really great strategies in there for how to give yourself fake demo artifacts, as well as actually how to demo safely.
Yeah. And really sort of been doing a lot on policies and processes, but I don't want to demo on real ones. So I've just been going, Copilot, create me a policy about blah, blah, blah. And, I'd never trust it for a real one because it makes no sense for the organization I'm showing it to, but it works very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I often do as well if I'm presenting to a client is I'll go to Word or PowerPoint and I'll use a prompt to create a document specific to their industry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
fairly early on, I was asking Microsoft Word to create a detailed briefing of the state of the shampoo market in the UK for a client. And then I was on a call with like a financial services company a few weeks ago, and they actually gave me the prompt to use, but they asked, I can't remember what it was called now. It was like some kind of loan servicing agreement or something. And they were actually, they said for a first draft with very limited prompts, it was actually all right. So that's another thing
Yeah.
I always do as well.
So what was the last session that we recommend that was a little different?
Yeah, so the last session, it was a little different as well. It was Bill Ayres and Simon Hudson talking about it was basically beyond what's beyond Copilot. So looking to the future and looking at the possible emergence of AI doppelgangers.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. We maybe should have banned that session because that's more pilot than autopilot, isn't it? Sorry, that's more autopilot than copilot. Stretching the boundaries there a little bit.
Yeah, I still think it's quite a good future looking session though, and
Yeah.
talking about kind of some of the the legal and moral and ethical implications of having an AI doppelganger. Who owns your image and your voice, and what are the kind of rules or guidelines around what it can do, and the responsibility and governance, and how do you train it? How do you make sure that it's responding safely and that the things that it's saying are right?
But no, I can't remember if it was Bill or Simon, but one of them talked about, it'd be amazing. You could create a doppelganger of you. And, when you're no longer with us, your friends and family can go and talk to that and have that memory. And I was like, I don't know, that would freak me out slightly. I know people kind of save voicemails of people who are no longer with us and go back and listen to that. Would you want an AI version doing that? I'm not sure, but kind of like the idea that people can choose if they want to. I'm hoping both sides of the equation can choose before it happens. But it's fascinating. I think it's one of these things that sci-fi writers have been addressing for a while now. We now have to actually look at this for real, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I can't remember what it was called, but there was some Microsoft tech that that Microsoft Research published a few weeks ago. We talked about it on a previous episode, where you could just take like a photo and a very short voice clip and actually create a video of someone. I mean, it's not quite the same, but it's very similar
Yeah.
in terms of how easy it is to create those deep fakes and who owns
Or,
your
yeah,
persona.
yeah, a random example, if you run a recruitment company and someone decides to take your voice and make a mock advert of that and play it at the keynote of a conference, as just a made up of there, what are the ramifications of that? To it? And I think there's And looking at elections, there's been serious ones go around. I've seen quite a few go around about Gareth Southgate at the moment, kind of replacing his press conferences with saying different things. It's interesting. It's a concerning time. I think most of them are fairly obvious, but it's not far off not really being able to detect.
Yeah. So interesting times for sure. So that's the end of the episodes we did want to highlight today. Like Kevin said earlier when he flashed up the YouTube channel, all of the videos are over on our YouTube channel. You can go back and watch them anytime you like. And they're on our LinkedIn and Twitter as well, but YouTube's probably the easiest place to go watch those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say we're coming to a slightly, I don't want to say slower, but we're not seeing quite so much news come around to Copilot at the moment. So Zoe and I are sitting down and having think about what the next few episodes will be around this. So if you have any thoughts on what you want to hear from us, if you have particular items, if you want to hear from someone particular, then please let us know, and we'll go and try and hunt some of those people down before they disappear off on summer holidays.
Yeah, or even if if you've got something particularly interesting to say and you'd like to be a guest and come on to an episode with Kevin and I, just reach out. Yeah, like Kevin said, I think the announcements have slowed down a little bit post build and post the end of the conference season. A lot of our friends who work at Microsoft, we know that they're slowing down for summer. Lots of people are taking their summer vacations. So I think let's just keep the conversation going over the next few weeks. And I'm expecting that by the time we get to September, things are going to start ramping up again.
Yeah, I have heard some things touched on. I won't say what, because I can't remember if it was talked about publicly. But some things that may start to come either into preview or things during July. So there might be a couple of bits that come through, but yeah, definitely get into contact. I was desperately trying to hunt through and see if I could find that in a link, but I can't. So we'll talk about that later. But do also please speak to your friends, speak to your colleagues, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, encourage everyone else to, because the more you can, the more we can share out, and the more numbers we get, the bigger names we can get coming and talking to us as well. And just a final message to some of those people who said they get a session who haven't been able to. We will be hunting you down, not to have a go at you, but to give you a hug and ask you to come and appear on the show and give us the session live as a chat instead. So we will be hunting you down, Chris Huntingford. Others who are out there as well.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for listening, everyone, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.